Hey there, it's Christina, the caregiver. Some of you might not know, but 3 years into my care journey, I was told I had 6 months to live. My care journey started March 16th, 2013. My mother had a stroke and I instantly became her caregiver. She was in perfect health. She passed out. She hit her head on the side of the couch and caused her to have a massive stroke. I had to live with her in the hospital for 3 months, and then when I brought her home, she was paralyzed with multiple chronic medical conditions. Well, in that first 3 years, I got to tell you, I didn't even realize I was a caregiver. For the first 3 months, I was just a daughter who didn't want her mother to die. Little did I know, when she was being discharged and I was wheeling her out, I suddenly became a PT, an OT, a nurse, a med manager, a case manager, a speech therapist, all of these things. I had a caregiver. I had no idea, right? I didn't even understand what a caregiver was. I was in tech. If you wanted to know what software and hardware to use in your business, I was your lady, right? But if you wanted to know what adult briefs and how to do wound care and how to safely transfer somebody, I was not your girl back in 2013. But I quickly had to learn. And I was so worried about my mother because I felt like everything I did, every moment of my day was crucial to her. Every thought that I made, every decision that I made, every action that I made could have changed the course of her life. And everything I did, her life depended on everything I did, is what I thought. And so when people would say, Christina, you have to practice self-care, I wanted to kick them in the shin. And that's me being nice, because I didn't even have time to sleep. I didn't have time to eat. I didn't have time to shower. I'm trying to work full time, care for my mom. My mom might die in a minute. She's having seizures, all of these things. So when am I going to practice self-care? Well, when it was time for me to leave my corporate job in 2017, I went to my last doctor's appointment and they said, Christina, your body's literally shutting down. You maybe have 6 months to live. And I, at that point, had no choice but to practice self-care. And my first act of self-care was literally a 30-second act. It was taking a blood pressure pill and texting a friend and saying that I had taken the pill. And so I had to learn how to incorporate self-care, and I had to do it with baby steps. And 1 minute turned into 5 minutes, and 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes, and 10 minutes turned into 15 minutes. And then I realized that I really did have time for self-care. But because I was so afraid of losing my mother, because I was so afraid that if I wasn't constantly thinking about her, it might jeopardize her life, I realized when I wound up figuring out how to have time for self-care that all I was trading in was the time that I was spending obsessing and questioning all my actions and worrying. And that was a hard thing to do. So I'm not belittling that journey at all, but I had to do it in baby steps. And one of the things that I found, because I cared for my mother from March 2016 until December 28th of 2022. Now I am on a caregiver recovery journey, and self-care is very, very important because I don't know how many of you know this, but the stats for family caregivers, the last I checked, it was 30% of family caregivers pass before the person they're caring for, and 35% of them pass within 5 years of the person they're caring for. And for people over 70 who are caring for a loved one, 65% of them pass before the person they're caring for. So self-care is still very important, even while I'm discovering who I am when I'm not actively caring for a loved one. And I found this super cool thing that I love, and it's these right here, and they are self-care cards. And so one of the things that I like to do is pick a card and see what my self-care item is. Because frankly, on my caregiver recovery journey, and even when I was caregiving, making decisions sometimes is hard because it felt like there were a lot of things riding on those decisions. I know that the technical term for it is called decision fatigue. The Christina term for it is, I have no flipping clue. So these cards were really fun for me to have. So I'm going to start a small series where I choose a card each day and just share with you what I'm going to do for self-care that day. And it's going to be small things. These are not going to be epic assignments for me to do because I one, can't wrap my head around it sometimes, and two, I am a caregiver at heart. And so self-care for me needs to come in 30 seconds to, 5 to 10 to 15 minute increments. And I'll figure out what I like from there and build from there, right? So these are the cards right here. No, they're not tarot cards. No, they're not religious. No, they're not any of those things. They're just self-care cards, and it is the Sacred Self-Care deck by Jill, P-Y-L-E. There you go, right there. Screenshot that if you want. And there's a bunch of self-care decks out there. You can look on Amazon. I am not in any way, shape, or form sponsored by this person. It just is something I found that I like. So today, really quick, and most of the self-care card videos are going to be much shorter. So if you're a caregiver, there are ways that you can incorporate self-care into your life. And if you don't want to call it self-care because that makes you want to throw up, that makes you want to punch somebody, then call it, taking time for you, or whatever you want to call it. You know what? You're the boss. You're the boss of having your life while you're taking care of somebody else. So this is just a fun way. Sometimes I need to incorporate some fun because caregiving can be really heavy. Caregiver recovery can be really heavy. And sometimes we don't know how to have fun because it's been a while. Because we're constantly in the state of going into an emergency, coming out of an emergency, planning for an emergency, or in the middle of an emergency. Or if we're on a caregiver recovery journey, we have no idea what phase of grief or caregiver recovery we're going to be in that day. So I wanted to have a little bit of fun. So for today, let's see what card I'm picking today. It is Plan a Vacation. All right. So let's talk about this. Now, as a caregiver, we know that our finances are sometimes affected by our caregiving. For myself, I had to pay anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a month for my mother's care, and that was just for her care. That wasn't for the other little things like picking up her prescriptions or doc briefs or things like that. And then in caregiver recovery, because my life was so affected financially when I was caring for my mother, I am recovering financially. So for me, planning a vacation might not be in the books. So when I choose this card and I'm in my caregiver phase or my caregiver recovery phase, wherever I'm at, I need to take into account my finances. And so what we can do if we're in our caregiver phase or caregiver recovery phase and our finances are affected is, take 5 minutes and dream. You can either journal that, you can just take 5 minutes to sit outside with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and dream about a vacation. Put together a plan. It can be a plan for 5 years from now, or when you can afford to do that. Put together that plan. Where would you like to go? Would you like to go to Bali? Think about, just take a mental vacation. Think about what it would feel like to be in Bali, walking around all the beautiful places, or walking on a beach. Take a mental vacation if you can't afford to plan a vacation right now. So this is my self-care card for today. Plan a vacation or experience a vacation by taking just a relaxing moment to dream about that and feel that. When you're thinking about that, when you're thinking about a vacation on the beach, take a minute to relax. Think about what it feels like to have the wind in your hair, the sun on your back, the smell of the coconut oil, hearing the waves. Tap into all those senses, and it can literally be a 5-minute experience. This is caregiving. This is caregiver recovery. This is you taking care of you while you're taking care of a loved one. Make sure to like and follow for more of the care tips and taking care of yourself and making you a priority in self-care while you're taking care of a loved one.